and Tullah works for SAGCOT Center. There are some interesting stories, and Mr. Kirenga had alluded to, as he was doing his closing remarks, what SAGCOT has been achieving. As we are working on enhancing productivity and looking at capacities that needs to be built locally to actually trigger the regional trading, SAGCOT Center is at the center of things. In your view, Dada Tullah, what are the success stories that SAGCOT are proud of in real triggering and enhancing regional trade from Tanzania, but also across East Africa region and the SADC region as well?
Yeah, Chairman, thank you for the question. As you've given me only 10 minutes, let me go straight to answer on what you've asked. From the presentations and the discussions we had today, we have noted that actually Africa is importing a lot from outside. So we are more or less main importer, from the shoes, Mr. Kirenga's shoes, to the food we are also consuming. And we know for sure when it comes to agriculture that we do have potential to feed our continent, but also to feed the world. Also we know that we can produce and expand the opportunities we have now. Specifically Tanzania and our neighbors, East African community, we are in a position to plant almost everything what we are eating and what is being consumed. From sunflower that we have been importing from Ukraine, to wheat that has been produced in Russia. So we know for sure that we are in a position to produce in a scale. The only challenge that we are facing sometimes, it is about the standards, and thank God that the person who is responsible for that spoke here. But also we usually have a challenge to supply on the required amount that the market will need, but also in that frequency that the market needs. And we know that so far in Africa, we are just using 25 potential we have to produce. We could produce more, but till now is only 25% is being utilized. And if you want to trade, you must have surplus. Without surplus, you can't trade because you will consume it yourself. So now I want to come to your question. What SAGCOT has done, or which ways we have used to support this initiative to make sure that Africa feed itself and also export outside the continent and among ourselves. We at SAGCOT, usually we are looking into value chains, and we are looking into those value chains. We are prioritizing the value chains which, first, we know that they are very competitive, and second, there is critical mass of private sector who are already working in those value chains. And I want to be here very specific. When I'm referring to private sector, organized company, SMEs, multinational companies, local companies, but also smallholder farmers. We are regarding a smallholder farmers as a private sector because he makes his decision like anyone who is doing business. So we have been prioritizing traditional crops like tea, cereals like maize and rice. However, we saw big potential in horticultural crops, and this is because we in Africa, we have soils, we have the weather that allow us to produce those crops, fruits and also vegetables. And so, for example, in the Southern Highlands, we have managed to work with our partners to place Southern Highland as a producer of avocado in Tanzania. Of course, avocado is grown in different areas in Northern Highlands, but also Kigoma and the other places. But now, if you ask where is avocado is being produced, you'll be told in Njombe. Njombe is in the southern highlands. And we are seeing potential of other crops. For example, we have just started. We are looking into apple. What we know is that so far we are net, East Africa is a net importer of apple and apple products like apple ciders, apple juices, apple vinegar, and so on and so forth. But the private sector we are working with has informed us that East Africa is importing the value of 75 million USD of apple products and apple fruits itself. But we know for sure that this is among the strategic crops that East Africa and Africa can look at. And we are in a position to produce this fruit and the product associated to that. So for that reason, I call upon us all to see apple as a strategic crop. And trust us, we have observed the trend as it has been for avocado. In the next 5 years, we hope that Tanzania might be a net exporter of apple. So, of course, now we are speaking the language of food systems. Food systems include everything along the value chains. So at SAGCOT, we are looking also not only crops, but also the livestock sector, which is very important. And we know that if livestock sector want it to develop, we need feed. And most of our animals use crops like soya, maize, and these are strategic crops that are being used to produce animal feed. So for the case of SAGCOT, we have been focusing on production and the aggregation of soya. And this is for local consumption, regional consumption, and also for international consumption. Of course, we have, as Tanzania, we have signed a contract with China to export 1 million tons of soya. As we are speaking, 2 years ago, we were producing around 5,000 tons of soya in Tanzania. Come this year, we have managed to produce about 20,000 tons. With the support of our partners, Royal Norwegian Embassy, we are implementing a project called the Tanzania Soya Sustainable Initiative, whereby we are expecting in the next season to increase the productivity up to 50,000 tons of soya. But mind you, it is clear to us that in Tanzania alone, a demand for soya for animal feed and human consumption is around 400,000 tons. As I've said that, dairy and poultry are very critical value chains that we've been working in. For example, poultry, now as we speak, Tanzania is a net exporter of fertilized eggs, and also we have managed to be self-sufficient here in Tanzania in producing day-old chicks. And this has been possible simply because already the value chain, livestock value chain, is investing. There is a lot of investors in it, and also there is that drive, and we are working very closely with the government of Tanzania to make sure that things are happening. So we have been exploiting the markets to see what the market need and what we can do to make sure that we produce for that market. So just to conclude my my presentation here, I would like to inform you or to make you note that so far Tanzania is a main player and a strategic player in food trade in East Africa, but also in SADC. We are producing rice twice as much as what we consume. And for that reason, the rest is being consumed in the regional Kenya, Uganda, we're exporting in Rwanda, DRC, Zimbabwe, and other countries. And we know that we have the potential to produce up to 4 times from what we are producing now. And as the trend goes, and our farmers now understand the basic issues on soil management, land leveling, we expect that in the coming years, we will reach that goal and produce 4 times and export our rice to other countries. But also, we've taken note of crops like pulses, beans. Tanzania is a net exporter of beans in the region, and we have noticed that farmers have appetite to produce this crop, and also the private sector are increasingly engaged themselves in this value chain. There is another crop which was not in the ladder 10 years ago, and that is potato. In Tanzania, when you speak about food security, maize is number 1, rice number 2, and now potato is number 3. Nadhani chips zege for my fellow Tanzanians, all of you know it. We have something we call chips mayai, is chips made of French fries made with eggs. So it is like some concrete, yeah. It is like...
Yeah, that's a good one to end with, Tullah.
I want just to one
bullet,
point,
please.
Yeah, one bullet point. So this crop is being produced in Southern Highland, Northern Highlands, almost all over Tanzania, and for now, we are the supplier of potato in the East African community, up to South Sudan and Kenya and everywhere. So just to conclude is that we as Tanzania, we are positioning ourselves, and we are strategically to be the food basket for East African community, SADC, Africa, and also the globe. And thank you for that. This will be made possible, and I want to call you all upon to work with us as we are going to agricultural corridors of Tanzania, whereby we will be having our interventions in Tanzania, not only in the SAGCOT corridor. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tullah. Round of applause for Tullah. She has really given some important points here. And you know what I liked about her, and it was almost taking me and forget to remind her on time because of the things she was speaking. But she started by explaining some challenges related to supply side constraints on some value chains, and she was speaking about products related to Apple. But I loved her ending notes. Like, it's not all difficult. There are some success stories on poultry, for example, and dairy products, poultry specifically. And she spoke about fertilized eggs that we are net exporters, rice, we are surplus, we have surplus, and we can export more than we import, beans, and she finished by speaking about potatoes. So it means there are some stories, there are some capabilities that have been realized that we can have actual positive trade balance. But for the subsectors and value chains that are real of high value, that we need to add value, what kind of stories and what kind of capacities in terms of success we learn from SAGCOT Center? And if we had time, we could unpack in terms of policies, what went right, in terms of technology, in terms of capital, but we don't have luxury of time. That being said, maybe Kevin would be of help as he helps us to unpack and try to see, you know, most of these trades, these businesses Tullah has been speaking about, are actually done by small scale or SMEs, but it's not all glory. As SMEs go outside the border, they face a lot of challenges and bottlenecks. So Kevin, in your view, what are the key things that SMEs face when they go outside the border? And possibly, what do you think can be done to address such? Karibu.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for this question. I think most of it has been covered in the previous sessions, but I'll try to iron out some key issues which really the SMEs are facing whenever they want to expand, whether within the country or outside the boundaries. So the first one, and speaking of the SMEs here, I mean from the subsector I'm coming, I'll speak about all the value chain actors.